Excuse me. One of the places where I work as a teacher is the Royal Marsden Hospital down in Sutton, which is an oncology hospital. So all the children there have some type of cancer or leukemia. And I also teach history as well. And I think both of those jobs, the occupational hazard of them is that sometimes really awful situations become a bit routine and you become quite hardened to actually what's going on either in front of you or what you're talking about. This poem, I guess, is a kind of reaction against that. It's called The Consumption of History. You must consume these things lightly. Treat them as a random handful of facts, scooped out, weighed, and shaken down into a paper bag with twisted corners. Suck each one slowly. Register the taste of smooth, compacted knowledge, reducing down its mass to nothing. Resist the urge to bite. Loss will splinter into minute fragments of personal detail that slip beneath the skin of your voice as throat muscles tighten upon the shards of broken lives that refuse to be swallowed. The next poem is completely different. It was written for a flatmate of mine who was getting married. And I think as flatmates you do see all sides to each other. So I guess this is a poem a little bit about that and a bit about how when you're a student you sort of look forward to being what you think of as a fully fledged kind of grown up with a nice house without washing hanging above you when you're eating your dinner and that kind of thing. And the poem is just called Wedding Quartet. Home is a nest of old, established things. Jeans hanging on the pulley smell of fish and onions. Above our heads a mobile of socks turns slowly. In the back green, cats weave like shuttles through the loom of spring as you cut the grass, dreaming of the wealth of white walls and sitting rooms. For now, we borrow from each other all the time. A pile of CDs, a turn of phrase, knowledge, and grace when we are broken. It gets paid back in kind. A hug that draws together splitting seams. This is the centre of home. Newspapers strewn across a sticky table, a cup of tea, and a smile as vivid and hopeful as a rag of blue sky. This poem kind of, I guess, started again from another place in Edinburgh. There's a church in part of Edinburgh called Newington that has a garden that's sort of open to the public, so you can just go in there and sit there and eat your sandwiches. And it's one of these places that not many people really seem to know about. And there's also an organist in this church who every so often just goes in and practices, and so you get this amazing organ recital for free as you're having your lunch. And I had a friend who had a house that kind of backed on to that church. And the poem's called Untitled. The sink is a clutter of failed efficiency. A porcelain cup dregs tea into milky clouds as wildflowers stuffed in a jar loosen their petals in a dust of gold across the windowsill. Wobbly streamers of water sketch phrase marks over the evening, scribble a damp notation across t-shirts and jeans. An organist pours music into an empty church. Our voices, paper vessels, borne forwards on an overflow of sound. The next one is yet another Scottish one. I really do need my map of Scotland. For this one, we're basically going across the Firth of Forth, and it's set at New Year in a place called Crail, which is just along the coast from Anstruther, which is where they had the one and only case of bird flu a few years ago, so that's its claim to fame. And basically, if you're in Crail, you look back across the Firth to Edinburgh, and then you've got East Lothian and all the little towns that you can see. So you're sort of on the other side of the water. The poem's called Hogmanay. Along the coastline, towns are amber jewels. A lighthouse winks, the sea tosses and turns. Laughter rises, blooms, then fades to silence. We check the time, 2 minutes left to go. Out over there, dunes crumble into beaches. A midsummer's night, the sky is light at 10, and the evening spreads its wings above our antics. Broken diamonds drift on the ebbing tide. Oh, the wind is cold. 11:59. Beams of torchlight slide across the quay, and a paper lantern's tossed into the blackness. It heaves upwards, flops down into the waves. Spatters of white, a flurry of pink and green. The year crackles up above each town. We toast it in with plastic cups of Carver and the verse we know of Auld Lang Syne. As in the harbour, another paper lantern struggles and flaps from its berth of hands, dips for a breath, then rises. We trace its flight until it shrinks into a star and disappears. When I wrote this poem, in the centre of Edinburgh there used to be the main hospital of the city. I think, like in many places, it got moved out to the outskirts of the city, which I guess was a sort of sensible choice, but seemed like the end of an era at the time. And they had this big hospital that was listed, so they couldn't knock it down, so they decided they would redevelop it. And part of that redevelopment involved cutting down quite a lot of trees that sort of were at the outside of the site. And this sort of seemed to happen without a lot of warning, and I remember watching one of the trees being cut down and sort of feeling a bit sad, and also as if it was too late to do anything about it, because they were literally there with their chainsaws chopping this tree down. And I guess it made me think how a lot of things you maybe sort of don't get there soon enough and suddenly they're gone. And the poem's called Redevelopment. We had assumed that you would always be there, sprinkling shade across the sweep of our path, in a benediction that we wandered through and did not notice. The recipient and confessor of the silences between remembered thoughts. How quickly you are lost. In a restricted zone, they dismember you. All we can do is watch, twisting the slim band of our sadness, rediscovering the weight of a tarnished silver ring we are unused to wearing. I think I'll finish with this one. This poem was written for the Peckham Literary Festival. I live in East Dulwich, which is in Southwark, so Peckham is really the next place down the road. And it was actually read in a bookshop called Peckham Books. And it's really a poem about reading, and when you're teaching, you just think, it's incredible how when you read, you're looking at these squiggles and they transform somehow into really quite deep, significant meanings. So this is a poem about that. Jane. I can flip you open at any page. Your yellowing, black patterned wings opening a world within my hands that is soft and frail with love, its corners curling up like autumn leaves. There you are as I left you, shelling peas for dinner, and I am still amazed, still wondering if you might close yourself to me, withdraw your gift of being, disintegrate again into an obstacle course of loops and dashes. Instead, you draw me in until I know the texture of your speech, the silences you wind within each phrase like skeins of wool. I close your wings shut and turn towards sleep, but you're holding me now. You feed on the flame of my world. Thank you.
Wonderful couple of sets from Penny, and thank you for taking us on a journey up to Edinburgh and the area around it. So more applause please for Penny. Now welcome back the wonderful Mr. P.R. Murray, and he's, I have to tell you, his book is on sale, and it's called Son of the Glowing Night Soil of the Concealed Emu. So it's emu or emu? Emu. Okay, so P.R. Murray.